There we go. Boom.
Boom.
Boom. Duncan,
Hello, friend.
thank you so much for joining me today. You have
Man,
no idea how much this means to
thanks
me.
for having me. Well, honestly, I've been looking forward to it, and I feel like I owe you an apology because I agreed to be on your show quite some time ago, and circumstance, moving, blah, 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 it just put a lot of time in between
I
then
completely
and now.
get it. You know, you're forgiven 100%.
Thank you, brother.
So a couple things that I wanted to touch on today.
Okay.
The first thing I wanted to say, I missed my chance to say it in the way that I wanted to say it because of the whole setup thing. In the words of Jim Carrey, I was concerned about going into the world doing something bigger than myself until somebody smarter than myself made me realize that there's nothing bigger than myself. For me, that person was you,
Oh,
and
thank you.
I'm very grateful for that. So I just wanted to say thank
Wonderful.
you, first of all.
Thank you.
I know we just started by talking about how difficult podcasting is, but let's talk about podcasting a little bit more.
Okay.
I know your sort of origin, how you got into it, but like, what made you decide you wanted to keep pushing on with it? Was it something that like you just felt was, this is great, I have to keep doing this, or was it like, did you feel like an urge that you just needed to tell a message or something to somebody?
Well, never a message. I try to avoid that because I think anytime intentionality gets too wound up in it, I become less spontaneous. And so the more intentionality, the more technical it gets, the more technical it gets, the more there's stammers and stumbles and confusion. So I try not to think too much about messaging and stuff like that, but
Mm.
I love it. I love conversations, and initially that was what I was digging about it, was that it formalizes conversation, so it produces the unique situation in which you're having just a formal conversation with somebody, which used to just be I think probably the way it was. Like you would sit down and have tea.
Yeah.
That's what you'd have this like ritualistic, formal kind of conversation. But now, because of technology, we've got a little bit of signal jamming happening, meaning that if you're around someone, quite often they're looking at their phone, there's distraction, you know what I mean? They're lost in the particular like chaos of Maya. And so I began to realize, like, holy shit, I'm getting to have these great conversations. And then after doing it for a little bit, I realized, oh wow, these conversations are like transformative, and I'm learning things, and you know what I mean, like that they're it's like any other great thing. Oh, if you do it over time, you realize that it's actually shifting your consciousness, and so then that became the second thing that I love about it. So that to me, will always be like why I love podcasting.
Yeah, I mean, I was very introverted, like for my teen years and up to my 20s, and but I started like having friends over, and conversation was just like the key thing. I'd be like, "Oh, hey, check out this stuff," and I'd show them something, and then we'd have a conversation all about that topic or whatever. And when COVID hit, that left me like dry for conversation and like just longing, just interaction. And
Yeah.
so I had to do something. I'd had recommendations before. My friends have gone, you know enough about this kind of subject to start a podcast or whatever. And I was just like, I'm kind of a all over the place kind of dude. I got interests in like, I paint, I listen to a lot of music. I prefer to be a listener of music, but I do also make a lot of music. So,
Wow.
I mean, there's a lot going on with me, but I don't necessarily have a lot of practice in any one given thing. I just say, hey, I'm gonna make something with this, and then, you know. So the podcast for me was kind of like, it had been suggested before, and I had equipment enough to do it, but I was like, I don't want to, single myself out to one specific topic. So I got to find something that's gonna let me spread myself. And
Right.
sort of creativity, as I've been approaching spirituality, has just been the thing to me that stood out the most. Is you can spread creativity on anything. It's not like butter. You can spread it on paper. You can spread it on music. You can spread it in the air. You can just about spread creativity anywhere.
Yes.
And you're not going to spread it too thin. So it was my choice to sort of stick with creativity as sort of my topic, and that
Okay.
branches out into like science and you know, any given thing, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I feel like the spiritual path that I've been walking down, and again I say it's mainly because of you. I wouldn't say it's completely because of you, because before I knew who you were, when I was very young, I'd have like what people might call like sort of an epiphany or whatever every once in a while,
Yeah.
and sort of realization. Like I can remember being very, very, very young, like 6 or 7, and I'm a big Beatles fan.
Cool.
And I would stand outside and I'd look up at the sky and I think, I'm breathing the same air as Paul McCartney is right now.
Yeah.
It's the same air. And
That's cool.
one thing that I found myself, I'd constantly come back to thinking that kind of thing, and realizing it's not as simple as understanding that you are on the same planet. You know, a lot of my life I was told, my mom was Catholic and my dad was sort of raised agnostic. My babysitter was Christian, who not only attended church but like went to she'd drop us off at a daycare center where they had like you know, it was sort of like a Sunday school daycare center. They'd teach like prayers and stuff. So it was like interesting on my end to view God or something as like a person that was watching you or something. When I sort of understood it as more of just existence made more sense to me than there's a man watching you and he's judging your, you know, what you're doing and things like that. So
What do you mean? Like existence is synonymous with the attention of the divine. Like existence and the attention of God are the same.
I was going to build to this, but you got me dragged into it now. Okay. As far as what I can tell from existence is that it's shared. It's like you exist and I exist, but we don't both exist in separate existences. We exist in this same existence right now. And even though we're on two separate, you know, continents right now, I'm in Canada and you're in the US. So it's like Ram Dass once said, probably more than once to be honest, but he asks people in this lecture to try to experience a shared awareness, because you know there's no such thing as your awareness and my awareness. Like you can be aware of something and you can acknowledge that that's your awareness, but you're just being aware of it, and the awareness that exists for somebody else is the same awareness of being aware of something as your awareness being aware of it.
Yeah, like it's like
even if you're not aware of the same thing.
Right. Well, but the sort of the quality of it is identical. And also like I love that idea. The shared, the Buddha mind is one of the ways I've heard it. One of the names for it, which is we all share a mind.
Yeah.
And the illusion is that because we end up entangled in our identification with our bodies, then the illusion would be that I'm this unique, separate individual, which is no different from, you know, it's like if a radio gained sentience. This is how I always think about it. If a radio became sentient, then it wouldn't be that hard for the radio to start thinking it was the Beatles. You know, it might really start thinking that, not realizing that it's picking up a frequency. And so I think this is sort of the condition of humans, is that because we are sharing a consciousness that I don't think is solely a result of having an advanced nervous system, as some biologists will tell you, neurologists will tell you, that there's so much confusion that can happen to a person, and a lot of isolation and loneliness, and also a lot of magic can happen, you know, because if you start thinking that if you do think you're an individual and you don't share a mind, then if suddenly someone starts demonstrating qualities that we call telepathy or whatever, then you're going to be like, holy shit, how did you know that about me? There's a whole industry based around it. They're called clairvoyants.
Mm.
And like and it's miraculous to us because we don't think we share a consciousness. But from the perspective that we do, what they're doing is really not even that special. But just because we're still in a state of like, uh, we haven't evolved yet to the grand realization that we do share a mind. It's people can do magic tricks still and that could be great if the intention behind it is benevolent, but also people like notoriously use the shared mind to manipulate people. Actually, it's really like that's what's crazy. That's why in like shamanism and magic, there's a distinction between the shaman and the sorcerer. Because the shaman is a being that's like utilizing that connectivity that many people seem to be oblivious to heal, whereas a sorcerer uses that connectivity to vampirize others. I don't know why I'm getting like all weird and fucking in search of with you here, ancient aliens here, but that is like the shared mind is like I think one of the most interesting areas to explore.
You're hitting the topics on the head, though. I'm going to get into aliens later if we have time. Let me ask you about the Midnight Gospel a little bit.
Okay.
Everybody's into that, right? I love that show. It changed my life, and it's the reason I'm podcasting now.
Great.
So thanks for that. And I believe you talked to Pendleton Ward recently, didn't you?
Yeah. I mean, not too recently, but I talked to him here and there, for sure.
If you talk to him again, tell him you've got a bunch of people from your community just love the show.
Oh, I will let him know, and he'll be happy to hear that.
Did you have any like say in Clancy's character development? I mean, like,
yeah,
as far as like design goes, I know that Pendleton came up with the bag for like cosplayers. Yeah,
Pendleton, he included me in every step of the way, and I tried not to get in his way too much. He's such a generous person creatively, and so talented and such a genius. But yeah, when you're coming up with character design, especially like the main character, which is one of the biggest parts of the show, a lot of thinking goes into it and a lot of people are involved in it. And so I'm sure I could dig it up somewhere, all the different possibilities for Clancy. There were so many, but Pendleton came up with the hat, the wizard hat and all that. And, also like, what color do we make him? Do we make him chartreuse? Do we make him Caucasian? Do we make you know what I mean? Like there are all these different colors for him, that we had to pick. I remember it was very exciting, that process of narrowing down what we decided would be the best Clancy. And there's all this full theory behind it, and like in the animation world, so much goes into that. I was really blown away by how complex and serious it was, but it had to be because that's like choosing the main actor for a show.
I read an article somewhere that said that it was acting as if it knew that season 2 was going to be a thing. Is there any confirmation on season 2, or can you not talk about that yet?
We haven't been canceled yet. We haven't been picked up and we haven't been canceled, so we're in limbo. And it's, I've let go of it. Because the show is so well received and because we were getting good reviews and Rotten Tomatoes, we had a high score. My fucking naive ass was like, they'll definitely give us a second season. I bet we'll get it. I don't remember, after the New Yorker said something about it, I was like, this is for sure going to be when they're like, do another one. But they still haven't asked. And so I found that to be a real, like, wonderful kind of like spiritual workout, because I had to disentangle myself from any expectation regarding Midnight Gospel, and I had to learn how to like put my consciousness in the glorious fact we got to make the fucking thing. You know what I mean? It taught me a lot about my own like greed. Like, you know what I mean? Like, what? You just think you get a second season of, you don't get that necessarily. That doesn't just happen. Isn't this enough?
Yeah.
Like at one point I realized that that there was a kind of feverish quality to my desire to do another one, and not just because for business reasons, which was a part of it, but certainly not the biggest part of it. The biggest part of it was there is another season. Like there's a whole other story that we didn't get to tell yet about the chromatic ribbon, and it's in me, and it's a little painful because because there's more to it. There's so much more to it, and who Clancy is and stuff. But that being said, we haven't been canceled yet, and Netflix isn't shy about canceling stuff. So who knows? I don't know. To stay sane, and I have to just keep turning my attention to the fact that we got to make it, and that I got to work with Pendleton and Titmouse, and we got to make this psychedelic show, and that to me is like the best. And I mean that not in like I'm talking myself out of disappointment, but literally like, holy shit, I can't believe we got to make the Midnight Gospel. I'm so lucky,
Yeah. I was going to bring this quote up earlier when we were discussing like other like experienceness, but Sharon Salzberg, sorry, I quoted her saying something the last time she was on the Love Serve Remember Foundation. She said, you write the book often because you're exploring the content yourself. So we're going to drift off from Midnight Gospel here, but I do want to ask you how maybe that sort of exploration of the Midnight Gospel helped you to sort of maybe think of some things to apply to yourself in real life.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, good God, it taught me how my listening skills aren't that great because making the show, I had to listen to the podcast episodes over and 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 over.
Yeah.
And I began to hear what like people like Trudy were saying, and I realized, oh my God, it's like, that thing you get into, like people who take acid all the time, they don't integrate the experience. Like people who get really into psychedelics, but they're into the psychedelic moment, but they don't integrate like some of the stuff they learned in that moment into their own lives. And so it taught me that I wasn't integrating data that I was getting from these conversations into my life as much as I could. And then also it helped me sort of, I don't want to say, I hate the word closure, but it like helped me work some stuff out with my mom, and it helped me like hear that what my mom was saying to me that I didn't hear and wouldn't have heard if not for the Midnight Gospel, because it was too painful to listen to that episode.
Yeah.
And so like, it was like listening to that really like reconnected me with my mom. So there's a few things that I learned from it that changed my own life, for sure.
Just to let you know, I ended up watching Mouse of Silver on Mother's Day, so that kind of hit me close to home because I lost my mom in 2009. So.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, cancer. It's a bitch. Let me get on to that topic, cancer. I smoke. I've been saving that for this. I know you have some choice words that you'd probably like to say to me for being a smoker.
What? I was addicted. No.
Come on. I want to quit. Now, push me.
You think I'm going to hack you into quitting?
Push me. Push my buttons.
Here's the only button I'll push. The problem with smokers is that they get into their mind that they're going to die from it. So that's the fantasy of the smoker is you're going to smoke, you're going to feel something weird, and you're going to go to the doctor, and the doctor is going to be like, oh, you're dead in a few months, and then you're just going to die. So it's this fatalistic sort of approach to the addiction, but in it is the fantasy of certain death. So, but really just because the technology in treating cancer these days is so advanced, you're probably not going to die. It's just going to be very expensive. It just costs a lot of money. It ends up eating up like time. So more than likely what'll happen is you'll get some kind of debilitating treatable disorder, some lung disease or something, or some, thing that is just going to go on and on and on and on, and your quality of life is going to be reduced by like 20%, 30%. You'll still be alive, but you'll be kind of sick every day, and it won't stop. And that and because you decided to smoke, you'll remember that. And then you'll start fantasizing about things. You'll think, God, I wish I could go back in time and tell that version of me that my life is worth more than being sick every single day. And then your kids, of course, will have a sick dad that they have to deal with. And then you're going to have to deal with your kids like coming over when you're older and like talking to like making sure you have a nurse, and you can't get out of bed as easily. So they probably have to get you out of bed. And the whole thing was preventable. And so, that is the reality of it. It's like, if number one, let's look at what's great about it. Smoking is obviously fucking incredible. If it wasn't, it wouldn't be so disastrous for people. It's wonderful. Don't forget that. It activates your neurons in a certain way. There appears to be some kind of nootropic effect. Like Stephen King said, it was the one thing that helped him write. It also produces a rhythm in your life, it creates a dark allegiance with people. And then it gives you a sense of identity. There's a stylistic way that people smoke. Their egos get wrapped up in the way they hold the cigarette, the way you get the cigarette out of the pack, all that. You develop this whole persona as a smoker, and also you fetishize, like what you just did with me. Like you're like, all the dirty bad boy shit in it, like you get this high from being like, what have I done? Oh, what am I doing? That gets you off in this grotesque way. And so you end up in this silly game of ping pong with yourself. And the problem with smoking, as opposed to a lot of other drugs, is that it just leads to a kind of debilitated state. And also the other problem is your kids are going to breathe it too. So you're getting all that karma. Like no matter what, your kids might get a little bit of the cigarette smoke, and you're upping the chances they're going to smoke because they saw their dad smoking too. And so then you're kind of like psychically poisoning your kids. And then I will add to that you have essentially become a dark missionary for the tobacco company that has you by the balls. And so because of that, you know what I mean? You're like literally like you've been sort of, I guess you could say, mounted by a demonic entity that is not just poisoning you and making it so your kids are going to have to come over and make sure daddy took his pills this week because you're a little out of it because you can't breathe, so your blood oxygen is low. But also they're going to smoke. And then think of that. How old are your kids?
My oldest is, I believe he just turned 9, and my youngest is 7. So
okay, 9 and 7. So just picture, what's the 9-year-old's name?
Vincent.
So picture Vincent?
Yeah.
Vincent. So picture Vincent when his shit friend is like, want to smoke? And he's like, yeah, why not? Dad does it. It must be awesome. I love my dad.
Yeah.
And then picture him smoking and like coming home and smelling like cigarettes. And now he's addicted. And now picture him stealing your fucking cigarettes.
I don't know how well that's going to work. The younger one probably, but the older one, unfortunately, is, let's go with this. DMD. So the oldest one has muscular dystrophy. So he's probably going to end up in a wheelchair and not going to have many friends. But I can see the younger one ending up being the smoker and taking habits after his father.
Muscular dystrophy, I don't think stops people from smoking.
No, but
man.
A lot of people he's been having trouble with his social life because they want to, this kid's in a wheelchair, let's stay away from him, sort of thing.
Well, regardless, the kid deserves a healthy dad.
Yeah.
And that's the main thing. I mean, there's so many things that when I didn't have kids that I loved to do that were so self-destructive. And I was always just like, well, what's going to happen? I'm going to fucking die. So what? Like, go to the catacombs under Paris. Look at all those bones. Nobody knows who they were. No one's going to know who I am after a certain amount. All this fatalism, all this nihilism to like, and I would just, just like not care about hurting my body. But now it's like, shit, man, I got to extend my lifespan as much as I can for my kids. Honestly, I'm not afraid to die. Like the idea of like evaporating into time sounds kind of, at the very least, exciting. But you gotta stay healthy for your kids, my friend. You've become you know what I mean? You're like somebody was telling me like the octopus after the octopus has kids, the kids eat the octopus's body, cannibalize the mother, and that's
Become
any
nutrients
good
for the babies. Yeah.
Yeah, your nutrients, motherfucker. You need to be healthy nutrients for your babies. Let them destroy you, not the fucking Philip Morris. You know
Yeah.
that just you just got to stop. Like, and I'll tell you this: after I had cancer, I remember bumming a cigarette here and there and being like, "What the fuck is wrong with you, man?" That's how addictive this shit is. It's so addictive that people who have lung disease still smoke. People on oxygen blow themselves up all the time. One of my friends in high school, his fucking grandfather burnt his house down because he didn't turn the oxygen tank off that he had to have when he was lighting a cigarette. Boof. The point is, like, this is not some little addiction. It's one of the great challenging addictions. You're challenged by it. You can quit. Just stop. You just have to stop. This is the thing. It sucks. It's not. It sucks. It's like you're addicted, and it's gonna suck. It's gonna suck for about a month. It's a shitty month. You're looking at one shitty month. That's it. And don't trick yourself into thinking it's gonna be easy. Just know, the moment you throw away your last pack of cigarettes, between you and a world where you're no longer under the spell of a truly demonic corporation, a cabal of wizards that monetize poison in the world, there's a shit month. It sucks. You're going to be grumpy. You're going to feel weird. You're going to have a million different things happen where you're like, this is a perfect time for a cigarette.
Yeah.
And you're not going to do it. And then at the end of the maybe the third week, you'll suddenly realize you went a whole day and you weren't even thinking about smoking. Then at the end of the month, you'll be like, wow, I don't smoke anymore. And the end of the second month, you'll be like, holy shit, man, I've wanted cigarettes, but I haven't had them again. And by 6 months in, I don't think about it at all. I smell them. They smell like shit. You know what I mean? I don't want to be around smoke. The smoke is horrible. You'll relapse maybe and taste it and be like, ugh, why the fuck did I ever breathe this shit? And then you'll be free. That's all. It's 30 days, man. It's 30 days versus like, what, a decade of slowly degenerating because you have COPD. Slowly, just slowly degenerating. Having to take COPD medication. Having a little fucking inhaler that you have to breathe. Watching the COPD commercials on TV and thinking, yeah, maybe I'll ask my doctor about that. Because my COPD medication isn't working. Because I can't breathe as well going upstairs. And you won't be able to go upstairs.
Thoughts of suicide or something like that, because that's all over those commercials.
Yeah. And you won't be able to go upstairs without stopping in the middle and holding the rail and going, and then you'll go back up to the top. And you'll be okay, but people will look at you and be like, damn, that sucks. Hope that never happens to me. So stop smoking.
There we go. Maybe I will now. Who knows? I hope to.
You know.
I'm gonna try to.
Know.
I've been.
You know what I would? I would watch my hand, bring it up to my mouth. Just do that. Watch your hand. Bring the poison to your lips. Watch the way you inhale the poison. Watch the way you blow the poison out. And just realize, like, oh wow, this is wild, man. I'm breathing poison. And then also just think, like, this is probably going to make it so I can't go upstairs in a few years. You know?
Good point, though. Yeah, that's a good point. That brings me into morality, though, morals. Do you think that humans sort of like inherit the trait of morals? Or do you think they're like, we're born with like an understanding of what we're supposed to do?
I think we're fundamentally good, but we're not born with morals good, or you have 2 kids. You know what it's like. I remember like when Forrest went through a mild slapping phase. Like I can remember bringing him milk and he just slapped me, but there was no malice. I mean, it was like I was looking at him and he was looking at me like he was like doing an experiment, like he was some kind of crazy scientist studying an alien life form and being like, what if I slap it in the face when it brings me food? How does it act? And just realizing, whoa, cool, you're a little scientist, and I got to teach you that you can't slap. So I would show him like, here, don't do that to the face, and then teach him how to pet my face, and I'd be like, this is nice. And then now sometimes he'll look at me and pet my face and go, nice, nice. And I'm like, yes, that's good. But you know what I'm saying? So I don't think there's some like necessary morality according to culture or according to like how you're supposed to act. I think there's a lot of epigenetic stuff. I think there's a lot of karmic stuff going on there. They are themselves. But I do think humans are fundamentally good. I just think that goodness needs it works really well with a set of sort of principles like that to help that goodness, to cultivate that goodness, or to cultivate compassion, to cultivate the qualities that we sort of societally understand to be universally good.
I was watching an interview with Ram Dass was talking to Thich Nhat Hanh, the monk, at the World Forum, or the State of the World Forum. He talked about, or he asked about anger and why it's so important to like sit with and understand it. And Thich Nhat Hanh said you should hold anger like a mother holds a baby, and caress it just the way you were talking about Forrest rubbing your face. Sort of made me think of that. Be tender with it and treat it like, because the anger is yourself. It's just as much you as happiness is, or I feel like it's important to remember that kind of thing as when you're approaching the world and you're in a sort of a distraught state or you're confused about something. Yeah.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think there's the older I get, the more I understand adherence to certain non-natural sort of ways of being. Like I'm too destructive when I'm angry, and I'm too, like, I learned, and this is something my mom, towards the end of her life would talk about, a regret she had is how good she was at like cutting people. Like, she was a psychologist, and she was really good at like pushing buttons in a way that could be cruel if she felt angry. And I think I picked that up from her a little bit. So I have to be very careful, unfortunately, because like I'm just too destructive, So I really, for me, it's like I've recognized it as in this incarnation a thing I really have to like. Like in Skillful Means, David Nichtern teaches this. There's ways to work with people. In one of them is called including, like including them, accepting, listening. One of them's cutting. It's the very last thing you want to do. Ferocity, like spiritual ferocity, with the intention of saving somebody. So in other words, like if I saw Forrest with pills that he found or something, and he was about to eat them, I'm not going to be like, stop, because what if I can't stop him, right? Probably I'm going to like smack his hand and knock the pills out of his hand, right? That's right. Ferocity, last resort, keep the kid from eating poison, right? So anger will trick you into being ferocious. It'll trick you into like using force or aggression to solve problems, and it never works. It generally never works. And the way Nichtern explained ferocity to me was that when the like realized people, or whatever you want to call it, are ferocious with you, sometimes it's just a whisper. Sometimes it's like they'll smile and say the thing that is like completely severs your attachment to some negative state of consciousness, but it's a last resort. So anyway, I think there's a lot to be said I think in our culture, people have gotten a little too caught up in, well, I was just being honest. I was just saying how I felt. This is how I feel. It's like, okay, you feel like that right now. Like right now you feel like that, but are you hungry? Are you sleepy? Did you get enough sleep last night? Are you hungry? Have you been drinking enough water? Or is your body in pain? You know what I mean? Because most of the time when someone's being a dick and saying, I'm just telling you how I feel, It's like, yeah, but also you're exhausted.
Yeah,
You didn't even
exactly.
sleep
You're
last night.
telling me how you feel. You feel like shit, so you're talking shit.
Right, exactly. And so for me, it's like, uh, in Buddhism, there's this idea that never don't like confront someone when you're angry, don't confront someone when your mind is disturbed, and certainly don't confront somebody unless there's no other choice. If clearly their mind is disturbed,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like if you're around someone and they're triggered, and they're angry and they're doing their anger defense thing, you're not going to have a single chance of being like, hey, let's just talk this out. Because they're like, why would you have done that? Right? There's no time. They're high. So you can be compassionate and give them a space within which they can rage. And then when they're calmer, then you talk. You know what I mean? And you try not to, their rage is contagious. So then now you're both raging. Useless,
Yeah.
pointless, doesn't do anything, is not dharmic, doesn't advance anything. You know how long it took me to learn that? I still haven't learned it. But it's like, I do know that what I have to do when I'll give you an example, man. Like, so I cleaned the laundry room. This is a really boring example. I thought I cleaned the laundry room, and I thought I found a pile of dirty clothes. And so I put them in a pile on the floor. And so Erin calls me and she's like, why did you throw all the clothes I folded? Those were Forrest clothes. I folded them. Why would you throw them on the floor? She's not angry, but she's irritated. And then I was about to go like, hey, I just cleaned the laundry room. Don't call and scold. That's in me, right? But I thought about it. That's the practice. I'm telling you, this is no mystical shit for me, but I thought about it for a second and thought, if I had folded Forrest's clothes and was under the impression that Aaron, for some reason, had thrown them onto the floor, I'd be perplexed and certainly annoyed, So thinking that way, I'm like, hey, listen, I really thought those were dirty, and I totally would never have done that if I thought that you'd folded them, and thanks for folding his clothes. I really am sorry. I thought they were folded. And then now see, if I'd been, what the fuck? Now she's going to get defensive. Now we're fighting.
Yeah.
But she says, I really appreciate that you cleaned the laundry room. And I know you didn't mean to do that, and it was sweet. And all of a sudden it's like, whoa, this is not the way I'm used to life being. You know what I mean? This is non-confrontational and sweet and wonderful, but it sure as fuck didn't feel natural to my egoic ass.
It's
You know what I mean?
navigating the multiverse, just like you were talking about before.
Exactly. Now I'm in a different universe altogether. What the fuck is this? This is a universe where I was able to not, my ego is still there. There's a part of me that's like, you tell her that you spent so much time cleaning that laundry room, and if you threw the clothes on the floor, who cares? Because you clean. Some self-righteous part of me is still there, but it gets to sit in the back of the bus until it calms down a little bit. Yeah. Maybe that's what Thich Nhat Hanh meant. But I don't subscribe to that way of thinking, which is like, I am who I am. And it's like, well, you're just giving a voice to a part of you that's very aggressive. But there's other parts of you that are a little more rational, and anytime I'm able to do that, my life exponentially improves. It's not like pushing my emotions down. It's acknowledging wait, there's a part of me that's annoyed here. And then realizing, wait, what's really happening? 9 times out of 10, what's really happening is communication difficulty.
Right. I think that's a part of the English language, though, is not just English, but, any language. But, just communication, breaking down, even if you're saying exactly what you mean to somebody, if they're trying to relay it to somebody else, there's information lost there. So it's when you're relaying something, it doesn't matter. You're going to lose information.
Even with yourself.
Yeah.
Even when you're relaying stuff to your own self.
If you're trying to remember something, even.
Always information distortion. And it's this is why it's great to lean into the concept of fundamental goodness, to lean into the concept that whoever you're dealing with actually does want to live in a peaceful, harmonious world, but maybe their method for peace is not bringing them peace. And maybe your way of reacting to people whose method of peace is not bringing them peace is actually not peaceful. Because that's a thing you can really you might realize is that just because you think the way you're acting is the way to act, why would it be? Why would it be? Why do you think the way many people are really cemented in the way that they deal with when someone does this, I do that. They're like a fucking computer code or something. And it's like, well, why? You don't know. Where did you learn that from? Most of the time they learned it from their parents. And it's like their parents were divorced. You know what I mean? It's like that might not be the way to be with people. And so that's to me thrilling. Anytime I find myself feeling like vulnerable or weak or like, oh boy, I really stand to, boy, Duncan, you're being weak here. That to me is a sign you're probably doing something right. Because anytime I feel like I'm being powerful, usually there's all this aggression attached to it that doesn't get me where I want to be. That's the whole point. It doesn't. If aggression worked to achieve harmony and peace, we would live in the most peaceful world. This would be a world of pure serenity. It doesn't work. Clearly, there's wars and bombs and people attacking each other and violence and anger online. And this isn't working to achieve harmony. So that means that the way to achieve harmony may be to subvert the aggressive impulse and as an experiment, try different ways of being. To me, that's where like ethics within a religious system become very useful, like the paramitas.
Yeah. Speaking of the paramitas, so I wanted to address gratitude or no wait, is it
generosity?
Generosity, yeah, dana, right? The first paramita.
Yes.
I've been speaking with a friend who I'm supposed to interview tomorrow on my podcast. His name is Dave Bushmeyer. So he wrote a couple books. This is one of his books. It's backwards.
Cool.
But we decided that we wanted to get together and send you a copy of this. It's sort of like a meditation guide. But it's accompanied by his artwork, which is really, we mentioned fractals the other day. It's really kind of fractally, and I think you'll enjoy it. So we'll set that up. I just wanted to do one more thing to finish up here since you have to go.
Sure.
I want to read you a poem that I wrote. Just get your thoughts
great.
On it. It's sort of based on some of your words that you said. You asked, it was just a rant on your crowdcast, but it was, you said, this is me making art, this is me not making art, what is that boundary? And sort of who decides that? So this is based upon that. It goes, what is art? Who draws that line? Is the person who draws that line an artist? Or is that line part of the art? Is it correct to assume that someone is making art? Or is it false to conclude that they are not? What is and what is not are not what is. But what is can be without you. If you wave your hand, do you leave a trace of where it's been? If you have no vision, does that mean you cannot see? If you proclaim you aren't an artist, does that mean you can't create? Are those words you're speaking, or are they thoughts? Are those thoughts you're thinking, or are they not? What is and what is not what isn't. But what isn't can't be without you. It's not what it is, it's not what it's not, but it's important. It is art, it is life, it is it, isn't it? Sorry, all the its make it a little confusing, but
no, you know what it reminds me of like Zen poetry. When you read the oh God, what's the name of the book? I'll have to send you the link when I remember the name. There's a famous Zen poet, and that's what it reminds me of. It's like, it's good. I liked it a lot. I mean, it's the kind of thing where you have to sit. You reading it to me would not be enough. I'd have to sit and think about it. That's a good poem. Thank you for reading it.
No problem. I much appreciate you joining me here today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me, man. This was really fun. You're really good, man. Your interviews, I liked it. It was like very natural and wonderful. I hope you keep doing it.
Thank you. I plan to. I intend to see where this takes me, and maybe we'll get to do it again in the future sometime.
Anytime, for sure, we'll do it again. I would love to do it again if you'll have me back. Thank you very much, and thanks to whoever's watching. Hare Krishna. I'll see you out there.
Take care, Duncan. Thank you.
Take care, brother. My pleasure. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare. Whoa. All right. See you later, man. Thanks for having me on.